This is my testimony. Before this time I'm about to tell you, I was brought up in a Christian environment. My parents were both Christians and we attended church every week. I was a good Christian girl. I had the fruits of the Spirit, got baptized at the age of 15. But then cliques started in the church and division happened, and I was pushed out. I didn't fit. I was pushed out emotionally. Then I went in search for love and friendship, and became lost for 8 years. After these 8 years, it all started with a feeling in my heart that I needed to research the existence of God. It all began with research on the internet, and the first thing that came up was an incident in Indiana, where a mother reported that her child was being possessed by a demon. He was running up and down the walls, secretly talking to something, and when the mother tried to send officials into the home, every one of them was terrified to even go into the room. Eventually, it took a priest going in to exorcise the demon out. I began by telling my partner at the time about it. I could hardly believe it myself, but it was a story that was posted in the news. A few months later, things were getting slightly rough. My partner was speaking violently with me. One incident when he bashed my head off the fireplace, with one of his friends sitting not too far from me. I remember not being able to see properly for quite a while. I stayed with him because I loved him. I did hope that these events would slowly fade away as life settled down, but to my dismay, it did not. I got to a point where I couldn't make simple decisions, and it was like he was manipulating my mind without me even realizing it. And after a few more months, we decided to move out of the house that we shared with others and into a ground floor flat. It was gorgeous and just perfect for the two of us. I was going to decorate it all nature-like, having trees, woodland creatures on the walls, and making the bathroom filled with sea creatures. It was going to be perfect, exactly how I wanted it to be. We were happy again for a while, madly in love, and I hoped I could just make him happy forever. But that was not the case. I began walking on eggshells. Felt like I couldn't say or do anything right. Something I did was always wrong, and then the violence started up again. I began to get shaky, and whenever I was away from him, I began to become even more shaky and nervous, that I had to be back at the house for him, otherwise something might happen. And then he would have his violent fits, and I would be terrified, and just wanted to get away from that, but couldn't. It was like I was frozen. I loved him very much, but he was hurting me, breaking my heart every day. I began to do all kinds of things just to cope with what I was going through. I began to smoke and drink heavily, and then became addicted to smoke weed. I got depressed, and my anxiety got much, much worse. I ended up going out more, drinking more, and staying out longer, just to escape it for that little bit longer. There was a day when I thought that there was a way I could just leave it all. I came across a bridge, and I was about to jump, when this supernatural force blew me on the path and took me off that bridge. The months after that one, I was waiting on a drug dealer when I heard someone say, I think it was an angel telling me, speaking this, that I don't have to do this. I can just not pick these up. But I didn't listen, and I got further and further into the dark. Then a thought occurred to me to go back to that research on God's existence. So I began searching again and found God is very real. Looking through on the internet, it showed me that God reveals himself in amazing ways each day, reminding us that he is there, within the world, our everyday life. There are so many instances and objects that directly prove the existence of God. Nature. God understood the complexity that our nature and universe possess. Therefore, he created a world that we could all live freely in. In order to take the breaths for survival, God knew that we would need nature to sustain it all. There is a meaning for every item's existence. The idea that God provides comes from his creation of nature. He knew what his children would need, and he didn't leave them empty-handed, nor will he ever turn his back on them. Yourself. God has a plan for you. The Lord created your fingerprints for existence, and installed the innate knowledge of what is right and wrong. The idea of good comes from God, and is placed within us all so that we can maintain. Moreover, the innate idea of good gives human beings the opportunity to comprehend God's forgiveness. We all have the desire to love and be loved. Ultimately, we all want to be accepted. Throughout our individual lives, we all try to fulfill our soul's desire. The notion that God created us, God is real, and that He still watches over us, is innately part of our existence. Jesus Christ. Look at the life of Jesus Christ. When you're in doubt that God exists, not only was He a man, but He was a being that changed the course of life for everyone. From the day He was born, Jesus greatly impacted the world. In His life, death, and resurrection, Jesus shaped the world, changed lives, and healed souls. We utter words in prayer, reinforce God's existence. We speak words to someone we cannot physically see, because we know that there is more to our existence, and the world in general. Accepting this is the defined truth. Observations. Discoveries in astronomy have shown beyond a reasonable doubt that the universe did in fact have a beginning. There was a single moment of creation. Advances in molecular biology have revealed vast amounts of information encoded in each and every living cell, and have discovered thousands upon thousands of exquisitely designed machines at the molecular level. Information requires intelligence, and design requires a designer. After this, I began to research further to find more solid proof, and as it is written, seek and you shall find. I began watching a video on the universe and everything else, and in this video, I went through Mendel's laws of genetics. Now in Genesis 1:21, it says God created the great sea creatures and every living thing that creeps, so that the water swarmed with all kinds of them, and there was every kind of winged bird. And God saw that it was good. This is where Mendel's law of genetics comes in. You see, an animal can only breed within its own kind, which it describes in the Bible itself. And if you try to breed an animal that is not within its own kind, it will either have a lot of problems or will not survive the process. Each animal has a program installed to itself, telling it of what it was alive to do, how to find food, and how to live. And not to mention, Genesis is the only book you will find that has measurements on Noah's Ark. The Bible speaks of the universe expanding 70 times, noting also in Genesis 1:6 the claims of dome over the earth, which is quite visible. God said, "Let there be a dome in the middle of the water, let it divide the water from the water." Our bodies are made of the same particles that the whole matrix of this place is made of. You are helping to define it. 5 senses placed into yourself consciously, allowing to examine the place. Then it spoke about a specific energy that grasped my attention, altruistic energy, which means work it can do in virtue of its actual condition, without any supply of energy from without. It spoke about a high intelligent source that creates things exactly as this high intellect being is. And then I heard, "But you can call me Dad." Then I began watching a testimony of a man who started doing a blog on something that displeased God. So he heard God speaking to him, telling him how wrong it was. And he went to church with his mum the next day. And when he got back, he knelt down on the grass and told God, "I need you to show me your existence. I need to see you. If you are real, show me." That's when a presence showed up, and the birds who were on the tree at that point noticed this presence immediately and began to worship it, and the man trembled in fear and surrendered to God. I literally cried when I heard this testimony, but I had to go on, so I went to watch a show called Sid Roth It's Supernatural. And I began watching it on my little table in my living room in my flat, my cat near me,